suddenly brought to life when I met you. Reaching beyond the skies, running deep, searching wide. Perfect love realized, here with you. Now this love is for real, you will never let go, never let go. Oh, it's more than just words, left beyond my control, out of control. This is your love, this is your love. This is your love, this is your love. Oh, 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 oh. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is your love, this is your love. In your heart I am found. I want you, I want you. You won't let me down. You got me, you got me. And this love is for real, you will never let go, never let go. Whoa, it's more than just words, left beyond my control, out of control. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is your love, this is your love. Oh, 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 you're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is your love, this is your love. Oh. Staring into your eyes makes my heart come alive. Suddenly brought to life when I met you. This is your love, this is your love. This is your love, this is your love. Whoa. Oh, oh, you're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end. Jesus, I'm found in your freedom. This is your love, this is your love, this is your love.
I live my life to the limit, where I'm at the end of myself. I see the edge, but I know below me your love is waiting to catch. I'm falling into you, 'cause no one's gonna love me like you do. Alright, I've got nothing to lose, so can't stop, won't stop falling into you. Alright, alright. The rush I felt in the free fall, as I lost control of my life. Jesus, I found that you've always had me. Your love is never in doubt. I wanna love you like you left me.
Hey everybody! Welcome to tonight's family meeting, And happy 2021. It is so great to be with y'all tonight. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. If you are listening tonight from wherever you are part of the family. And by the family, I mean the Ashley Ridge family. And it has been a family that has grown and has seen all kinds of things, much like everyone's family in 2020. But y'all, here we are in a new year, and I couldn't be more excited to be sitting with you tonight. I want to do two things in our time together this evening. I want to celebrate a little bit of 2020 with you really quick. I want to share with you some of the milestones we hit, the kind of big picture of all that we have to celebrate for 2020. And then I want to turn the page with you, and I want to talk about what's next. And so before we do all that though tonight, I know when our family gathers around the dinner table, one of the things that we always do first is we pray together. And it's our way of saying thank you to God for being with us and for all he's provided. And y'all, we have so much to be thankful for. So as we start off tonight and as we gather in this space, will you pray with me? God, thank you so much for tonight, for this family, for the opportunity to gather in this space to talk about and celebrate all that you've done in our midst. And God, so much of it has been unexpected. So much of it we've just been kind of wandering through, but you have met us at every turn. And God, we don't want to miss the opportunity tonight to say thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being out ahead of us and meeting us in those spaces, for picking us up when we were down and seeing us through such a tremendous time of change and different experience. And so God, be in our conversation tonight, even as we gather in this space and answer questions. God, would you collectively point our eyes toward what faithful looks like for Ashley Ridge this season in this new year? Because God, that is the desire of our hearts. We want to follow you. We want to be faithful to you as you have been so incredibly faithful to us. And so God, thank you so much. Thank you for all that you are. Thank you for Jesus, for everything that he has made possible in our lives. And we pray all of this in his name. Amen. Okay, so if I'm going to jump in on the celebration front of 2020, we all know about the difficulties. We all know about the challenges. I don't need to go back through any of what that was, but it is worth celebrating what God did in the midst of all of it. And so to quickly talk about some of those things, first and foremost, we saw an incredible year of spiritual growth. And in a year where we weren't able to gather for the vast majority of the year in person for our worship gatherings and our small groups and kids and students and all those things, as we were meeting in different ways, what was really amazing is we saw people take hold of their faith in new ways. And so many of you remember back over the summer, we still got to baptize, which was a big thing that we were able to do this summer. We baptized 9 people. And y'all, that's huge. And we have more people on the list waiting to be baptized in the months that are to come. We have seen people take some really big steps of faith. One of my favorite stories came towards the end of the year. One of our kiddos at church asked Jesus into his heart one night during their evening devotional time as a family. They were doing the Jesse Tree devotional. And this was a family who, because of the parents both being healthcare workers, they have stayed online in their worship and invested with their kids using a lot of the resources that we've put online for AR Kids and AR Littles. And to see that even in those moments, and as the family really rallied around that and had those conversations together, to be able to celebrate with them as their child took a significant step forward in his faith. And I know that's a story that was echoed in so many homes. And in some ways, we all know this, that these moments of tragedy and difficulty and crisis often give us opportunity to lean into our faith. But it was really something to celebrate as a church, as we watched in the different environments and the different kinds of ways we were having conversations. People really dug in. I think back to our Talking Point series leading up to the election, as we were talking about really practical things, but looking at it all through the lens, first and foremost, of our faith. And one of the big things that we've been celebrating a lot as a church as we reflected on 2020 was how AR Kids really saw such a huge leap in something that has always been at the heart of AR Kids. Our AR Kids vision statement has always been that we wanted to partner with families to raise kids who love Jesus and love his church. And that whole idea of partnering together to really put good resources into the hands of families to set up parents to win in those conversations and to make faith conversations easy and accessible within our families. That's something that's always been at the heart of AR Kids, and something that we've sent things homes and we've provided platforms. But one of the things we loved about 2020 is it really forced us into a space where our small groups did become our families and the people immediately in our bubbles, as we called them, through a lot of 2020. And it's really been incredible to hear more and more parents coming back and saying that very thing that we talked about together in worship got applied through the week at home, and they were able to call on those stories and those faith components together. Y'all, I can't emphasize enough the fact that we are looking at that as such a big win for our kids spiritually in this season, that they have connected that so completely with their families. Another big win for us in AR students this year has been the fact that we're actually seeing really good numbers of our students that are showing up for their small groups. And part of that has been because in our current arrangement of doing things at on Sunday mornings at the same time at the high school, it's made it really easy for families to all be there at the same time. But what's been really great is it has given some really fresh wind to our student ministry. And this is my first year as a parent of a student, so I know I'm coming at it very much from that perspective too. But I have a kid who loves Sundays because he gets to be with his small group. He gets to be with his peers in ways that he's not across the board this year. And so seeing those students developing those relationships, we've got some really amazing small group leaders that have jumped in 2020, and we're loving the growth that we are seeing in AR students. And so there's so much to celebrate from that in 2020. One of the other things we've talked about is the worship nights that we were able to do early on in the quarantine days. James did some worship nights live on Facebook just from his living room. And y'all, we had some of our largest online gatherings for those evenings because we just needed those moments to worship together, to sing the things that we knew to be true, to remember those things that were true. And y'all, I really feel like God met us in those spaces. And I heard a lot of stories and saw some really great pictures of kids pretending to play the guitar and everything else, but really taking that worship piece as to a piece that was really understood in our homes. And the other thing for me that hits home in that is we figured out doing communion online and in our homes, which I'll spare you this, but in theological ministry circles, there's still much argument over how that happens, and it's such a communal activity. But y'all, what we know is that that whole invitation from Jesus to gather and to share a meal and to remember and experience his grace in that place is not limited by any of our human limitations. And it was incredible to hear the stories about families at our online worship night and back at Good Friday and then again at Christmas, celebrating communion in our homes, offering that gift to each other in such a personal and intimate way. Y'all, that was huge growth. We let faith enter some spaces in our life that it wasn't always as easy or obvious. And so we're considering that a really big deal for 2020. And of course, we capped off the year with a Christmas celebration that could not be stopped by all of the corona or all of the weather and the squall that came through Summerville on the 24th. It was one more lesson in adaptation at the end of the year as we shifted our in-person services to the 23rd, and around 500 people from the Summerville community were able to show up in person to our 2 outdoor Christmas services, and it was beautiful. It was so great to be out there together that night, to have room to spread out and to still share that light and celebrate the gift of God come to be with us. And then on the 24th, we saw just exponentially more people that worshiped with us online, with people that had come into town and in different kinds of ways. That was a powerful service and a really great opportunity to remember what it is to hope even in the dark. And so I don't say all of that to put just a big old rosy picture on 2020. I will be the first among us to say 2020 was hard. It was really hard. It was painful. There was a lot that we lost in 2020. And yet, God, as he always does and as he always is, was faithful. And he used even the things that 2020 threw at us to allow us to grow and to see him in new ways. And so we don't want to not give credence to that, to not stop and say, this is a big deal. And the other piece that I really am excited to share with you tonight is I get to tell you tonight that you are an unbelievably generous family. And we've thanked you all throughout the last year for your generosity and the ways that y'all continued to give and just believe in the mission of the church as hope bringers and hope givers in this world. We knew that it mattered more than ever. And so in a really uncertain and difficult season, as a church, you gave more than you have ever given before. Y'all, 2020 is our highest giving year to date. Next week, we celebrate 11 years as a church, and 2020 will go down as our highest giving year to date. We're still finalizing 2020 numbers, but what I can share with you tonight is that you gave over $810,000 in 2020. And because you gave, we got to take our worship and our experiences into all kinds of new places online. We got to invest in kids and families and students in the ways that I talked about. We got to continue to invest in our community, and we got to take huge steps forward in our building process. And so let me break that down a little bit for you, and then I'm going to talk about the building stuff and where we got in 2020 and then what's next. But in 2020, of that over $810,000 that was given, we had a operational budget of $600,000, and we did not spend all of that. We were able to cut costs, as everyone did in 2020, and try to be really responsible and good stewards in an uncertain time period. So our operational budget was $600,000. We spent less than that, but the operational giving was over $625,000. And so one of the things we shared with you is that anything over $600,000 would also go toward our building. And so we spent money out of our operational fund because we could in 2020 to actually take more steps forward in the building process than we thought we would in 2020. Like, I hope you're grasping what I'm saying to you right now, because this is a really big deal. I have to be honest with you. And we had a good amount of money that actually came in that last week of the year, and I was overwhelmed. New Year's Eve this year, I sat there that evening overwhelmed at what I was seeing of your generosity and the faithfulness of God to us as a church. And so the fact that we not only met our budget and exceeded all of that, but we also built in margin and were able to use operational funds to move forward on building pieces was tremendous. And especially because we are sitting in a place right now where we don't have a building to worship. We're still waiting to be able to use the high school again. I'm going to talk more about that in a couple minutes. But in a season where we don't have a building at all, to take such huge steps forward to having a space that we can create more space for more people and continue to help people belong before they believe and tell the story of God, that was just incredible and such a strong reminder to me that when it's God's will, it's God's bill. And I know that's maybe an old phrase that we've thrown around, but it is true. When it comes to kingdom work, God provides. And as we continue to make that prayer of God, show us what the next faithful step is, He's meeting us there along the way. So in addition to the over $625,000 that was given to our operational, and some of that will even all the beyond what we've already used from that for building purposes, we'll be able to kick more over into our building fund. But then you gave an additional $184,000 plus to our building surge. And so thank you for being generous people, for people who are seeing and believing in the vision that God has put before us. We're really eager and excited, and I talked about this with the Christmas offering. It really is what sets us up walking into the new year. And so we are walking into the new year as a church in a position where we've been able to build a reserve account that we're going to need as we get farther and farther into this building process. We've been able to continue to do the work of paying for the land and set ourselves up to start building on it. We've really been able to put ourselves in the very best position possible. So this is a really big deal and something that I've spent time telling God thank you for, and I want to say thank you to you for being part of that story, and I hope that's something that you'll continue to celebrate with me and something that we can continue to build on together, right? Generosity is it's not a destination point, it's a way of life, right? We continue to trust God with more, and then we get to see what it's like to be more and more a part of what God is doing in this community and around the world. So that's such a big piece to celebrate with you tonight. On the building front in 2020, and I know some of you have been around for previous family meetings. For some of you, this might be your first family meeting. Maybe you're relatively new to Ashley Ridge, and so I want to try to give you the big pieces and catch you up as much as possible with everything that we've done. So we do own 10 acres of land out in Summers Corner. If you get to that traffic circle on 61 where you've got the corner house and where we had our Christmas services, and you turn down Summers Drive past where the houses have already been built, about 3/4 of a mile down that road on the right-hand side is our Ashley Ridge land. So we own 10 acres out there that we are working on, and in 2020 we were able to have that land surveyed, which is just a deeper look into all the trees and the land pieces, and then from there it went to a geotechnical study where we did all of the soil borings that let us know what we were working with and what kind of land pieces are going to have to move where, how much retention we're going to need, and all those kinds of things. We were able to meet with our architects and really spend a few days zeroing in on an actual site plan and floor plan. If you were with us for our family meeting in August, we spent a lot of time walking through that floor plan and the pieces that are going to be part of what we're building in phase 1. We did a phase 1 plan and a master plan. One of the things I'm going to be showing you tonight are some shifts that have happened as we've done more pieces and we've started to bring in the technicalities of utilities and some of Dorchester County's requirements of where parking spaces go. We're going to show you the shift. The floor plan hasn't changed, so I'm not going to go through that again tonight. And I do want to encourage y'all, if you are not already, please subscribe to our building updates. If you go to forsummerville.com, you get to our building updates, and there's a spot where you can put in your email address And then every time we post a building update, and Derek Harris, our project leader, is so faithful in these. Really, they're going out at least one every other week and sometimes more frequently. And in those building updates, we're really trying to give you all of the information. And then all of the previous building updates are on that website. And so you can go back and there's links to the floor plan and all of those things that we shared with you before. And at any point in time, if you have more questions and want to chat about it, our building team and our staff and our leadership team, we would love to continue to have those conversations with you. But I am going to show you how some of the site plan has shifted in our conversation tonight. But I do want to continue to update you on where we got in 2020. So we did the Equip Lab, we did the land survey, we did the geotechnical. There were several meetings towards the end of the year about utilities because this is a newer part of Summerville. The water and the sewer pieces are not entirely there yet, and those were some big, significant pieces for us in terms of hurdles that we had to overcome. And I'm really thrilled to be able to share with you that we found a way where there were some moments, didn't feel like there was going to be a way. I learned way more about sewer systems, and I still do not have all the technicality, but I can tell you that we figured out we're going to be able to do a temporary lift station to what's there now that'll shift once more stuff gets built in that direction. And so we have a place for the sewage to go. And some of you are like, can we please stop talking about sewage? But it's actually a really big deal. So we figured that out. We were able to figure out the water pieces, and then the civil engineering work that has been done in the last couple months of the year has been really significant for us. And we're actually expecting the final civil engineering schematic report within the next week or two. And so we got a lot of it, and that allowed for some of the shifts that I'm going to show you, and more specific detail to even the grading and the pond and all that kind of stuff on the land. But we're going to get the final pieces of that really soon. That is a lot of stuff. For some of you, you might be like me. This is not stuff I do in my everyday life. And so as I've learned and as I've sat in these meetings and conversations, I really can't overemphasize to you the amount that was accomplished in 2020. We really got to go farther than we imagined in the midst of everything else that was happening. And what we really keep being reminded along the way too is that God really has built an all-star team for us. We have been so thrilled with our partners in this project, working with Trident Construction, working with Equip Studio as our architects, working with Cypress Engineering for our civil engineering work. Just amazing people who believe in this project alongside us, and really faith-filled people too that have truly prayed alongside us in this process, and we're really seeing the pieces of that come together. So that's 2020. All right, January 3rd, 2021, I am just thrilled to be able to report that all of those things took shape in 2020 and set us up for where we are right now. And so the next thing I want to do, and then James is going to join me and we're going to do some direct Q&A, but I want to talk just quickly about what's next. And one of the things we know is that things continue to change. It's why we've done some more frequent family meetings since last March. But things are going to continue to shift, and we're going to continue to adapt with those things. It's a good thing that one of our values is we embrace change, because we've just done it and done it and done it as we've gone, and we're going to continue to do that. But I do want to let you know what to expect in the weeks to come. And so starting from a worship standpoint, some of you are not in the Summerville area at all, and that's amazing. One of the things that we got a lot better at really quickly in 2020 was our online worship experience. We've been online for a long time. That wasn't new, but we were able to shift things, and because we are filming directly to an online audience instead of just capturing what's happening on Sunday morning, where we've really been able to craft that experience in some different ways. And so for some of you who connected with us as a church and you're not even in the area, we are thrilled. And we love the fact that technology is enabling a church family that is not limited by geography, that we get to pray together. We've gotten prayer requests from people in Georgia and Kentucky and Pennsylvania that have been walking alongside us, and we've been praying with people in those spaces and seeing more and more engagement and interaction in how we do that. And we are going to continue to be online. And so we talk about that idea of Ashley Ridge at home and Ashley Ridge on the go. And so that Ashley Ridge at home, we are live at 10 a.m. on Sundays, the same time our in-person gatherings happen. We are live at live.ashleyridgechurch.org, and we have online hosts that are on at that time as well. So if you want to chat with some of the other people that are worshiping at the same time, if you want to request prayer, you can do that. It opens up a separate chat window where one of the hosts can talk directly with you and pray with you in that space. There's just so much happening there where even from our homes or wherever you may be, we can connect. And so I want to encourage some of you, and especially some of you who maybe the reason you're not at an in-person gathering right now is because you have some sort of high risk or limitation that is keeping you away from that. I want to encourage you to still connect in that space and to engage with the other people that are worshiping in that same space. So when we talk about Ashley Ridge at home, that's what we're referring to. But then we also have Ashley Ridge on the go. 24/7, we are in your back pocket. Hopefully by now you have all downloaded the Ashley Ridge app. It has everything you need to stay connected, and so you can access directly from there our kids stuff, all of our worship experiences. You can give from there. You can connect to a small group through there. You can read scripture through there. Like, you can find out and do all of the things and be able to connect with worship wherever you are. One of the things we talked about last fall was that in this strange season where a lot of our patterns have had to adapt, was just finding what works for you and for your family. So our services for that online on-the-go experience get uploaded on Saturdays by 5 o'clock for that weekend's experience. And it's been fun hearing from families who figured out what that dynamic then looks like them on Saturday evening or on Sunday, or maybe it's another night that they're figuring out, hey, this is when we're going to gather and worship as a family, or here's when we're going to gather and we're going to pull up the AR Kids video from that week and have a little bit of fun with the so-and-so show and talk about those things together. And so we've really come such a long way, and there's just a whole collection of all of that. If you go to the Ashley Ridge YouTube page, James has done a really nice job separating those things out so you can get family content and adult content, and you can go back and experience so much of that. There is so much content. I know we're all in a little bit of content overwhelm. It's not stopping us from binging Netflix though, so I just want you to know that there is just so much that is right there at your fingertips. You can even go back at any point and bring up the night of worship that we did from September and worship again with your family. That was such an incredible evening, and it's still there that you can access at any point. And so we're going to continue to have all of those things. But what I want to talk about a little bit is our in-person gathering. Back in August, when I explained how our regathering was going to work, I talked about the fact that we were going to prioritize the need to get kids and students in person, and we were also going to prioritize our need to sing and pray together. Right? What are the pieces of our worship that just being together is so important and such a big deal? And so with those things in mind, we crafted an outdoor worship experience where, for those of you who haven't experienced it, I just want to describe this to you a little bit. But at 10 o'clock, we're out there on the lawn and everyone's together and we're spread out, and some people have masks and some don't, but we're trying to create a safe space where everyone really can keep that appropriate distance so that we are gathering safely. But we gather out on the lawn and we sing a few songs together, and I share just a really short devotional piece, something you can sink into that's connected to the message from that week. So there's not a full message because we've got everyone together, but we do that together in that space. And then we dismiss our students, so our 6th through 12th graders, then head down to the front parking lot with Lee and all of our small group leaders. And in their time out there on Sunday mornings, they play games, they hear from Lee about a lesson as they go through different series, and then they spend the bulk of that time in their small groups. And so middle school boys are a small group and middle school girls, and then you've got the high school small groups, and they get to break out and really invest in those relationships and those faith conversations and life conversations together. And so that's happening up in the front parking lot. And then as they go and we finish that beginning time together, all of our kids and our littles and their families stay right in that space, because we know it's really hard to move kids and to do all that, but all of this happens really quickly, and those families stay in that space, and our AR Kids team comes up and does just this phenomenal in-person AR Kids family worship experience every week, where they are playing games and telling the story, and then families are doing some of the small group things together on the lawn. It has been, I just can't overemphasize, it's been incredible. What we're hearing from the families, and lots of new families that are coming out there, is that this is really quality time, that they're having fun as families and they are growing in faith with their kids. And then, while that is happening, those who are adults who either have kids that are student age or don't have kids at all go to another part to the right of our parking lot area with me. And it's really been kind of fun because I get to teach in a different way, because for about 25 minutes with no microphones and no screens or anything, we get to bring our chairs around and sit and talk about the message from that week and dig into the scripture together and to have those conversations. I've really so enjoyed that time. And so what we discovered along the way was far more than we imagined. What we realized is that we prioritized the things we felt like we had to prioritize, and then God showed us how we could do so much more even than we ever expected in that space. And so for some of you who are in the Summerville area, if you haven't made it out with us on a Sunday morning in person, it really is great. And this morning, it's January 3rd. Thank goodness we're in South Carolina. It was 60 degrees and sunny. It couldn't have been nicer. And so one of the things that we decided as we were finishing out the end of 2020 is that until we are able to get back in the building at Ashley Ridge High School, and we do not have a date on that yet, we're just going to keep praying and living in the place that we are going to continue meeting outside on the lawn at Ashley Ridge High School, because we think it is the very best possible opportunity and this amazing space that God has given us for this season to worship and grow together. I got to be honest, I really am kind of loving it. And there are some moments and some weeks where the weather has thrown us for a loop, but as we've gotten some months into this, we have been able to develop a little more around that. And that's one of the new things that I want to share with you tonight. And it's that we purchased an FM transmitter at the end of last year, and we were able to test it out and use it for our drive-in movie night that AR Kids did out at the high school. That was crazy fun. We watched The Star together out there on a 30-foot giant screen up on the hill. We used it that night. It worked beautifully. And then we tested it out. We had a test group on Christmas Eve that helped us test out our system that was able to drive up to the edge of the lawn for our Christmas services and listen through their radio. So this is going to do a couple things for us. One of the things it's going to do is that for those of you that are still in that high-risk category, for whatever reason, really can't be exposed at any level to a group of people, even in an environment where we're outside and have plenty of room to distance. And so we do feel good about that, what we're doing on the lawn. But I know that for some of you, you are still in a high-risk category that you need to stay entirely away from people. And so we still want to give you the opportunity to show up and join us in a physical capacity. So starting this coming Sunday, we want to invite you, if that is you, to go ahead and drive up to the parking lot. We'll be able to give you the FM frequency, and you will be able to listen and join in with us right from your car. Now, when we split up into the different components, the FM frequency is going to stay with what's happening on the main lawn. And so that's where the bulk of our grouping is, with our families that have AR kids and AR littles. But I do want to encourage you, where the adults go on the right-hand side, there is a lot of parking over there, and there is a lot of space that if you'd like to park over there and even roll down your windows from where you are, you can participate that way. Or, because that's even a smaller grouping, your ability to just get out of your car for that point and give yourself some more distance and participate is possible. And again, we all have to make decisions about how that does and doesn't work depending on your circumstance. But we want to make it as possible as we can, because we know just how much encouragement and value there is in connecting in those physical ways. We did learn that in 2020, is that while we can do so much online, there is something about being together. There is something about hearing each other sing. There is something about being able to pray in that same space. And so I want to invite and encourage those of you that opens a door a little bit wider for you to come and join us in that capacity. The other thing that's going to allow us to do is it's going to help us fight the weather battle a little bit better. Because what it's going to mean is that where we've had a few Sundays where we've had to not meet before because of the weather, this is going to mean that even if the gathering will look a little bit different, if there is a weather event, if it's super, super cold, or if it might be raining, we are still in some capacity going to be at Ashley Ridge on Sundays at 10 a.m. And so even if that means everyone is in their car and there's things that we just drop off in your windows for students and kids, and as part of that experience, we have plans for that. So we want to be able to gather and meet with you every Sunday in person out on the lawn at Ashley Ridge High School. And y'all, I can't... Once upon a time, that felt like we were doing the best we could with the cards we got dealt. Now it feels like a gift and an opportunity to meet God right now and grow in ways that we have never grown before. I met several new families this morning out on the lawn. And there just has never been a better time to invite people online or in person to come and experience worship together. I'm really so very proud of our staff and our volunteers and the people who've just continued to reimagine and create environments and experiences that are doing phenomenal things. And so I really want to encourage you, hearing all of that, and I know it's a lot, to figure out where you can be. This morning in the message, I talked about how we're going to be like a tree in 2021. We need to be rooted, we need to be refreshed, and we need to be resilient. And so I want you to intentionally root yourself in these places. And the other thing that means is that you're going to hear me talk a lot in the next few weeks about joining a small group. We have another semester of small groups starting up. They're going to continue, for the most part, to follow along with our weekend messages. And so it'll be a really easy opportunity to jump in and be able to discuss the questions that go with that week's message. Those groups are going to be in person and online, and in the weeks to come, I want you to stay tuned, and I want you to jump in when you hear that registration is open. Find a group that works for you and connect with a group of people that are going to be able to encourage you in this season, that are going to be able to grow with you, where you're going to get to ask questions and dig in together. All right, I'm talking about a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to continue to go quickly. So if you have those questions, at any point, you can type them into the comment section, and James and Lee are back there collecting some of that, and we're going to answer questions when we go. But if you've got one and you're afraid you're going to miss it, go ahead and type it into the chat right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you can jump over to live.ashleyridgechurch.org and ask that question right in the chat. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff. The last thing, though, that I do want to talk about and give you some more specifics on before we do the Q&A is where we're going next in the the building process. So I shared with you all of the work that we were able to do in 2020, and where that leaves us right now is in these first weeks of 2021, we will get a final schematic report from the civil engineers. And then what we'll be able to do with that is put that directly in the hands of our contractors, who will be able to give us our first very real budget estimate of what this project will cost. Now, we've had lots and lots ongoing budget worksheets for what this project looks like, and we've been able to talk about it in pretty specific terms, but this is going to be our first really concrete look. Now that we know things like the fact that we're going to have to dig a pond that's a little bigger than we originally thought, but we know enough about the soil now to know that all of the soil that we dig up will be usable on our land under the building pad after it's been chemically treated. And so we won't be paying to haul dirt off, which we might have had to do before. That was a good piece of news we got at the end of the year. But we also know that we need a lot of fill dirt. And so now that we've got specifics with the grading of exactly what that looks like and exactly what the footprint's going to be and where and how it's going to sit on the land, we're going to get those concrete numbers. So once we have those numbers, which we should have by the beginning of February, we'll be able to start having earnest conversations with lending groups about a building loan. And then that's what it'll take for us to walk into a phase where we actually start doing the land prep and then the building. So in broad terms, that's what that looks like. So what I do want to show you really quickly is I mentioned earlier that we were able to make some shifts to the site plan at the end of the year based on what we learned from the civil engineers. So really quick, if y'all want to give me the old picture, just so I can refresh everybody's mind really quick on the site plan that we showed you in August. It's spinning, it's trying, it's thinking so very hard, y'all. The site plan that we showed you in August, we showed you a phase 1 site plan that includes really kind of two bigger block spaces, one that's AR Kids space and the other space that's AR Student space that will also function as our worship space in phase 1, and then a lobby space. That's still what phase 1 looks like. So like I said, the floor plan didn't change. Okay, so there it is. This is what it looked like. This is Summers Drive, okay? And so this is to the right. So if you were driving from that traffic circle I talked about, you'd be coming up Summers Drive this way, and this land is to the right. And so you can see where that entrance was and where we had that pond, and we had some parking kind of all the way around the building. And so the biggest things that shifted, the other thing that we had was this food truck pavilion to the front. But one of the things we learned in our meetings with Dorchester County is they have some rules and regulations around the buffer zones, and also where different parts of the parking can go with buildings of different sizes, and also having any kind of structural space in front of the main space, okay? So with that in the back of your mind, here's the shift that happened based on that information. Hopefully it's not going to spin on us quite so hard as it thinks. Okay, here it is. And again, it's not colored in. Again, this was kind of the end of 2020, but you are seeing a lot more grading lines because again, there's a lot more specificity that is happening at this stage of the journey. So over here is still Summers Drive. What you see is that the building essentially rotated 90 degrees and then about another 15 degrees. And then what that did was it accommodated the fact that we needed more retention than we originally realized once we got in and did all the studies on the land. So that's actually a good thing. That's more dirt we can pull out and use. And then we had to move all the parking to the back of the building and not have any of those structures on the main road ahead of the primary structure. And so what that did is we really just rotated the whole thing. And so it's the same thing, it's just moved a little. The direction of the pavilion has moved and where it is in relation to, you see the fact that we've drawn an amphitheater, which in phase 1 is really just going to look more like some green space that we've cleared, but has the bones for what we eventually want to build as that outdoor amphitheater worship space. But there's that same drop-off zone that we talked about before. The entrance to the site moved up to this side, and because the parking went to the back, one of the things that you see along this, essentially this drive, becomes a large stacking area to where we'll be able to get people in and out of the property. This is where our parking team comes hugely in handy, and we're so looking forward to that, but there's lots of space to move with that. And the other thing that's really kind of cool about this, I know for some of you, you might be thinking, whoa, it doesn't look as straight as it did before. Part of what Summers Corner has done from the beginning is really try to capture that community in a garden where you're really moving with things. And it really fits very nicely into that. And what you can't totally picture right now, but what our architects have put in front of us is as people are driving down Summers Drive, their first look and their first movement into this space is going to be a very incredibly welcoming look. Instead of just seeing these big building structures, into some of this grading and this green space and their opportunity to drive in and be welcomed in this space, which is such a big deal for us. So anyway, so I wanted to show you that tonight so that you could see some of the shifts that have happened as the details have gone into place. The sewer, since I mentioned, the sewer lift station's going to be up here, and there's going to be some water lines that run, and we're working with Lennar out there on hopefully getting some utility easements that will allow us to access those things. So those are meetings that are happening this week, and I want to invite you. This is a family meeting, y'all. Put it on your prayer list. We're meeting with them on Thursday to talk about utility easements and construction easements and all those kinds of really fun things that I continue to learn about. So, all right, y'all, that's a lot. That was 45 minutes worth of me sharing a whole lot of stuff with you. I hope you're excited. I hope you heard some things tonight that are bringing you to the level of adrenaline that clearly I'm feeling over here. My face isn't shiny just because the light's in here. I am so excited about what's in front of us and the pace at which we're moving. I mean, again, so much got interrupted in 2020. To be sitting where we are right now with the ability to take the steps forward that we have in front of us are huge. Our ability to continue giving and investing in this is also huge because right now we really are doing that. I mean, everything costs money. We all know that. But the fact that we're able to do that and to keep doing the next thing in front of us is really, really significant and really pushing us toward that goal and that hope of breaking ground in 2021. So that's still out there in front of us, and those are the next steps we need to take. All right, James, why don't you come over here and join me, because I'm sure that they are all tired of hearing my voice. James is shaking his head no, but he's really thrilled to come on here tonight.
I am.
James,
Yeah.
do we have any questions?
No.
You don't have any questions? Did I tell you everything? There's no questions? Seriously?
Not yet.
What do y'all want to know? What do you want to ask us? Do you want to ask what the insignia on James' hat is about? Because that was actually a point of discussion in 2020. You wore it for one of the worship filming things. You're not going to tell?
No.
Is it a mystery? If someone guesses correctly, is there a prize?
They won't, but yeah.
They won't?
No, there's no way they will. No.
I will do some research on your behalf and report back to you on such. We really don't have any questions?
I don't have any questions. You did such a good job.
Saying all of the things.
Yeah. Can you show us one more time where the sewer's going to go? That's my
That's
favorite.
over here. So I have a really cool map. I didn't put it up here on the screen tonight, but I actually have a whole sewer system map for out in Summers Corner. It's all kinds of things I never thought I would know about, James. They didn't teach me any of this in school, but I really have learned so much about that. Part of the trick was, because those things weren't there yet, for a moment, there was speculation that we were going to have to put our own pump station on our land. And to put a pump station the size we'd have needed, that's just not something you do. Plus, we're in the low country, and so that's real tricky with where things go. So that's why it was a big deal to get that. Garrett says, can we see the master plan with the new shift? Do we have that?
Yeah, we do.
Yes, we do. Hang on, Garrett and Amanda, just one moment.
Also, Nancy said, is that the entire 10 acres? The answer is yes.
Yes, that
Yes, it
is the
is.
entire 10 acres. And so this broken line that you see along the outside, that's the perimeter of the 10 acres. And then you see these lines that happen to the inside, and especially on that, and I'm going to mess this up here, this is the west. On this western side is we have to have a 15-foot buffer on that side of the land. So the reason you see so much space in between there is that's a 15-foot buffer. The good news is that on the eastern side, the pond can be in the buffer. So we're not losing any additional space there and to the front with this pond. And one of the questions you might have is the same as Lee's. He wants to know what we're stocking the pond with. So for
Crappie.
all of you... It
Yeah.
fits right into the sewage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, for all of you who like to fish out there,
Okay.
that's a thing.
We do have questions. We're going to do Michelle, and then we're going to answer Cindy and the Harder's questions because they kind of tie in. So
Okay.
Michelle says, what's the open space between the building and the retention pond being used for? And ta-da, we're about to show you. Can you hit the presenter?
Okay,
Oh, there it
perfect.
is.
There it is. Okay, so
That's phase 2.
It's for phase 2. It's for the master plan. So the reason the building is situated like it is in phase 1 is to allow for the growth of what will eventually be said. You know how I said in phase 1 we're building that kid space and the student space, and then we're going to be using the student space for worship. And so eventually when we build the other worship space, that's going to go over into that space. And then there's some additional kid space that gets built around there.
Yeah, we've got student small group rooms and small group and lobby and kitchen and food truck and all that other stuff. The good news is, even with these shifts, the entire master plan still fits on the 10 acres with adequate parking.
Yes,
which is
that's a big
huge.
deal.
That's a big deal. Even with the added retention, we're still going to be able to fit the entire master plan and adequate parking and the amphitheater and the food truck pavilion and the green space and everything else. That's all going to fit on the 10 acres. So
It's a big deal and took
Yeah.
no small amount of maneuvering and finagling. Those are the technical terms.
So Cindy asked if there was a cost estimate.
Okay, so right now, and I know I talked about, and I don't know if you asked this before or after, I talked about the fact that we're going to have the first really good cost estimate at the beginning of February. Right now, we've been working in a ballpark that to do everything we'd like to do in phase 1, it's around $7 million. Okay, and that includes all the land prep and all the filter and all those the hard costs and the soft costs.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
furnished. That's
right. Like
in
that's
the building with the lights on.
right. And
Yeah.
so there's plenty of room for variation because one of the big pieces out there for us that's going to be really very decisive in the early months this year are going to be what we're able to qualify for in terms of a building loan, and then how much we're going to be able to raise on our own, and what that'll start to shape the project very directly. So that's a very loose estimate right now, but
Yep.
we are weeks away from a lot more concrete estimate there.
Yep. The Harders asked if the land was paid off.
Is the land paid off? Okay, so officially, no. And that is because we have made huge payments throughout the year. And right now, we're at a space where we're trying to figure out a lot of things with Lennar about the land, specifically the 10 acres we have and the 10 acres we have the option on. And so right now, we've raised a lot of those funds. We're in a really good position to do it. It's a timing piece right now of sorting through the other 10 acres. One of the things we've shared in the past too is that the other 10 acres that we have, we put down $50,000 in escrow on that option. And so the reason we keep saying it's a really big deal that our master plan fits on the first 10 acres is that if we do end up giving back the option on the other 10 acres, that $50,000 will immediately come in and help us to pay off the land. So we're in a really good position to pay off the land. We have those resources between our building funds and our reserve funds. It's a matter of sorting through the timing and the other land pieces before we do that. And because we're so far ahead on the payments, that's just helping us.
Yep. Cindy said, do we have a church van that could be used to bring people to church who can't get there?
We do not.
We do not.
We do not have a church van. So definitely something that, you know, could very much be part of future conversations. We'll see where that goes, but we do not have a church van that does that.
Ben Kent asks, is the groundbreaking still on schedule for late summer?
Yes and no. And I know that sounds really loose. Yes, in the sense that is it out of the realm of possibility? No. Is it definite? No. 2020 definitely threw us its curveballs, and we've been able to do a lot of the work, and so that possibility is very much out there. There are some part of where the phase we're going to enter into next when those schematics are finished, and then as we get those banking pieces in place, is we're going to be in permitting. And permitting can be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months or more. And so our timeline is really going to start to hinge on those permits as we move into this next phase.
Yeah, and Dorchester County's been a little slower because of the pandemic and
Right.
because people are working.
So we're actually hopeful that we'll maybe have some good timing with the fact that as the pandemic lessens and things open more, maybe that'll speed up again. But we are being told that that process has been longer with the way things are working.
But we've got steps to take between now and then, and we just have to take the next step in front of us, which will get us to the next step in front of us, which will get us to the next step, which will get us to the groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But we're doing the right things. Okay. I'm not answering that, Tyler Rabin.
I think there was a challenge given to one small group in particular to ask the most interesting question. So I don't even know. What did Tyler ask us? Oh, how much of the land is left to pay off? That specific number, I want to say, and I apologize, I don't have it on hand. We'll include it in the next building update, but it's right around $75,000.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so is the amount that we still have left to pay to the bank. But like I said, we do have money in our building fund and in our reserves. We're just trying to sort out the next piece with Lennar before we do that. So we're in a position to pay a lot more of that off really quickly in 2021. Good questions. Do we still do change for $1? Cindy, that's a great question. And it is something that we have not done since the pandemic started. Some of you don't even know what change for $1 is, but for a very long time, we did this thing that whenever we met in person, we had these buckets that were change for $1 that were separate and apart from our offering, where we asked people to just put $1, no more, no less. We didn't want people to put more than $1 in there. It was a chance for us to tangibly come together every week and each put $1 in and then use it to meet a tangible need in our community that week. And so that was something that when our physical gatherings stopped and things shifted, we haven't done that. And so I do anticipate that making a comeback. And so that will be part of our conversation as we start the new year. It was a really great way, lots of great stories through the years of being able to just help people with a physical need that was right in front of them. And so it's definitely still part of where we are, and we're sorting out where that fits as we move forward. Yeah. But that's another great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was it, $450 that we paid for the first 10?
Yes.
Right. Plus another $50 in escrow for the second 10.
Yes.
So now the balance on both of those things is down to around $75,000.
Correct.
But we're still holding.
Which is huge progress, given how much we owed at the start of 2020. We made just massive progress on that because we were trying to do that first because it really did open things up. Now, again, 2020, things shifted with the pandemic in terms of the pieces we could do versus couldn't do yet. And so we reordered some of that process, which y'all understand that's how that goes. So I do want to stay with Cindy's question for just a minute because part of it does connect to our outreach in general. And one of the things that you see on our building plans is space to park our food truck and for a pavilion that's going to primarily be food prep space that relates to that. But that was a big piece that was definitely impacted by the pandemic as well. And there's also a lot of work that needs to be done on our food truck to make it fully operational. There's a lot of work that needs to happen there too. But that is something that we are figuring out what the next steps for that look like. And in the meantime, we have continued to partner with Hearts for Summerville, who are just doing extraordinary work in the Summerville community. And we've been able to, with the expanding the table, send along bagged lunches a couple times a week as they make those runs to the families. And then y'all were able to help us at the end of the year fill more than 150 food boxes that provided some groceries for for the families that Hearts for Summerville loves on and builds community with for the Christmas break. And so we're gonna, as we dig into this year, there's so many pieces that we get to keep reimagining and re-envisioning. But I want you to know that when you see that on these drawings, it's because it is a big part of the heartbeat of where we are. And so as we adapt, we need to adapt all of the pieces. And some of that we just keep shifting and looking for new ways and looking for new guidance. And but it's really important that that still remains who we are. Even as we build a permanent space, our goal has always been to go to people.
Yep.
So.
Aaron asked if we could quickly point out where the amphitheater, food truck pavilion, and other site aspects are.
Yes. Okay. So here's the pavilion piece. In the former layout, that's one of the pieces that shift because of where Dorchester County's rules about the where the primary building space, the larger building space, could be on the land in relation to smaller pieces. And so before we had it up farther on the property, and now you can see it shifted back. And it is in phase 1 and the master plan. And so our hope is to do that as early as possible. We've dreamed for a long time of not just having a parking spot for the truck, but a space where it could truly back into some walk-in refrigeration and kitchen prep kind of stuff. So that's where that fits on the land, and it's near that drop-off section and with really good proximity to the amphitheater, our ability, to use that for lots of different things.
Yeah. So the amphitheater is right here. Can you point that out?
Yes.
Yeah. Amphitheater is right there.
Yeah.
And then we've got playground space, green space up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting questions about the single ingress and egress. Is that going to be okay? And we're learning from our architects and our site planning people that the answer is yes. You can't see it on these drawings. We're going to put these in a building update probably that Derek's going to send out. But there's actually on the ingress, and then there's a median, and then there's 2 lanes out. So there's going to be a left turn lane and a right turn lane out, a median and an ingress in, and then a long volume of stacking space that also splits off into the traffic circle. One of the things that we're finding out with meeting with the county is that you can't just put ingress and egress wherever you want, and there has to be minimum distances between ingress and egress points, and our land isn't big enough to have 2 spots.
Yeah.
It's not allowed per DOT. So, yes, they've assured us that that's going to be enough, and yeah. So that's that question. Let's see.
Good questions, y'all.
Great question.
Thank you for jumping in with your questions. When can we get inside the school again? Sandy and Ron are asking about that. And the answer is we don't know. In our conversations with the school district, they've continued to tell us that the 2 things that need to happen first are that students need to go back to 5-day in-person instruction before anybody will be allowed back in. And the school board has to lift the no visitors ban that they have in place. Yeah. Those are the 2 things that need to happen.
They're hopeful.
So they are hopeful. Yeah. And one of the things we've even reached out about the Performing Arts Center in Summers Corner, because it's part of the school, but also part of the community, that is following the same instructions. I know the chamber was able to hold an event there in December. We followed up just to see if it changed, but we were given the same response. So the new principal at Ashley Ridge High School has been great. We love Miss Matthews, and she's been hugely supportive of us being out there on the lawn and is eager to work with us once we go back inside. But the 2 things we need to happen are we need kids to go back to 5-day in-person school, which is Mom, I'm also praying for. But then when that happens, and then when the school board lifts the visitor ban. So we're hopeful.
Chris would like to know where the signed stones are going to be going.
Oh, that's a great question, Chris. And I don't know the answer yet. I am really hopeful, though, that they're going to go near somehow the main entrances. And for some of you, thank you, Lee, who may not know what we're talking about, is for years now, we've had people, when you are part of Ashley Ridge Church and just choose to make this your church home, sign your name on a rock with the idea that we all become the stepping stone for the next person on their way to find Jesus and to grow in their relationship with him. And what I love about these rocks is it's such a tangible reminder for all of us that we are A, part of it, and that B, we become the vehicle and the opportunity for the next person. And so we've always dreamed that when we get to this building, these stones are all going to be part of that walkway. And so how that gets built in to the entries and the drop-offs and all that kind of stuff remains to be seen, but they will be out there. So great question. Aaron says, ARSD is still in charge of the 1600 LF of
Are we still in
water
foot of the water line? An estimated time frame for the temporary pump station.
Okay,
See,
Aaron?
all of these are meetings that we're having with Lennar this week. This is why we need you to pray on Thursday, because
Yes.
it's in the plans for Dorchester County.
Yes.
We're having all these conversations with Lennar, but we need those answers, and also
The specifics.
yeah, and there's a temporary solution for us to tie in into a gravity line. Aaron, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Tie into a gravity line before the pump station goes in. But once
Yes.
the pump station goes in, we are going to have to then connect to the pump station and terminate that gravity line. So all that stuff's in process. Aaron, if you have questions, Matt Halter is the person you would like to talk
Yes.
to. He's on our building team, one of our engineers with.
And would love to
yeah.
talk to you more specifically about things that I only half understand.
Yeah.
But great questions.
Cindy, Lee, can you make the plans full screen? Okay, they are. So Cindy wants to know where we're going to hang the T-shirt quilt.
Me too.
Oh, yeah.
Me too. I love that. Okay, so the t-shirt quilt was put together as part of our 10-year celebration back in January, and I think Nancy caught on video the night that the staff showed it to me, and I got to see it, and there were tears involved, and it's just a beautiful piece of just quilted together pieces of who we've been told by the t-shirts that we've had that have been worn at Christmases and Easter and by different volunteers and small groups and all those kinds of things. It is so beautiful and so very meaningful, and there will be a spot. So again, much like the stones, I don't know exactly where, but I cannot wait for it to be in a space where everyone can see it. Because right now, I'm kind of the only one who can see it because it's at my house. So I want that to be something that we all get to see and share.
Yep. Trey Tierney wants to know, can we get a small group leader hype/locker/game room? And can I answer this? The answer is yes. Yes. And oh my goodness, if you haven't got the full vision of the student space that the students are going to graciously let us use for worship sometimes until we can get phase 2 built, it's going to be incredible. I've seen the renderings, the small group space that's dumping out into that green space, the small group rooms.
It's really cool.
Yes, you are going to have your own lounge that we can also use for starting point and some other things,
Trey
but small
is
group
one of
leaders.
our high school, right, Lee?
Yep.
High school, middle school. I
Yeah.
get really confused. Middle school small group leaders.
We're going to have
and
space for basketball
really cool
and
space.
everything else you could want in that student worship space. Is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
and
excited.
whether there's games that happen before and after the students get there, y'all will just have to let us know.
Yep.
So.
All right, y'all. Anybody got any other questions?
These are great. Y'all are asking great questions. And what I love is it just reminds me that we're in this together. Y'all are thinking about it. Y'all are praying about it. Y'all are pushing in the right areas where we're going to need to continue to push together, because it's big. It's a lot. There's a lot of pieces that I struggle sometimes from day to day to feel like I can get my hands around and that we can get our hands around. But the fact that we all are in this with our gifts and our passions and that push together is really huge. So thank you for dreaming with us. Thank you for praying with us. And thank you for really pushing with us of what does this next step look like.
Cindy asked if we could do an outdoor worship night, and we actually have already talked about that. Stay tuned. Hopefully 2021 we can pull that off.
Yes, we are working on that. That's something we would very much love to do.
The Bakers asked, are there any developer or county funds available to help with the project as part of the Summers Corner master plan?
Okay, so that is another part of the conversation that we're having with Lennar this week. There are some pieces, both with Lennar and with the county, because there are some pieces that, because they're not there yet, and in specific, and again, Aaron and some others out there, you might correct some of the specifics here, but the size of water line that we would need for our facility is smaller than what the county's ultimately going to want out there. So some of the conversations we're having with them are about cost sharing on what goes in so that they can help input in the front to part of that master plan, which helps us, and then on their end, they get they get our help as well on the size that they're ultimately going to want for the master plan of the community. And so that's a really great question. And I know y'all live out there. And so we are very much working on how we can partner with Lennar, with the county, to do as much together as possible.
Yeah. And I just want to tell you guys on behalf of all of us how excited we are. It's so hard to communicate through a camera, but we had somebody in our church who's deeply involved in this process say, you don't understand how far you've come. You don't understand how exciting this is, how much progress we've made, even though it may not feel like that because you don't see steel going up yet. We have come so far. Even just in the last year, in the midst of all the crazy that's been going on, we are so close, y'all. We're so close. And I'm just so excited. And that was his message to us, was you need to stay excited because what is happening and what has happened is incredible.
Yeah, and even with the master plan of the community out there, it's been really easy at different points along the way to go, does this fit? And, it's a lot of fill dirt and we're figuring out water lines and everything else. But then it's like, God keeps reminding us and showing us different pieces of what's out in front of us. And even as we've knocked on other doors that keep closing and we keep getting pointed back. And so we're trying to stay really open and really be obedient here. It's just so huge in this, really be obedient here. And it was really encouraging at the end of the year to hear those words of stay excited, even from people outside of our church, our civil engineers looking in going, this is a really exciting project in a really exciting location.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Well, thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. And don't feel like the questions have to stop. You can email. Me, jen@ashleyridgechurch.org. You can get in touch with us through those building updates. That does look like a blog on our website, so you can comment and ask questions there and connect directly with Derek, who is our project leader. And we would just love to continue to stay in conversation. We will continue to update you, so make sure that you're subscribed and that we can continue having these conversations together. Y'all, I am so excited for the weeks that are to come, what we're going to learn together, how we're going to grow together, how we are going to re-engage some pieces of our ministry that were affected, how we're going to just really stretch into this new year together. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to be a really fun journey. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
This was a good time.
Yeah.
And we will see you again soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Stop falling into you. Alright, alright. The rush I felt in the free fall as I lost control of my life. Jesus, I found that you've always had me. Your love is never in doubt. I wanna love you like you love me. I wanna love you like you love me. I'm falling into you. No one's gonna love me like you do. Alright, I've got nothing to lose, so can't stop, won't stop falling into you.